Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we're going to be talking about some of the work that we've been doing to our Landmaster ride-on, and hopefully in a bit seeing whether it will start, run and drive. Now, in the last video on this tractor, we did a lot of work looking at the deck lift with the springs and also the deck engagement, the drive engagement and that sort of stuff. And we were struggling a lot with a couple of things. Firstly, being able to record what we were doing because there's very little space around this tractor because it is tiny. And the other one was the fact that we were just kind of going off of what we could see from our friend's Landmaster that we'd borrowed for this project, because we had no manuals or anything like that for one of these tractors. However, that has now changed because we remembered that these are Landmasters as they were sold in the UK. However, they are actually just rebadged MTDs from back in the 60s. So although neither of these tractors have their original ID plates on, so we couldn't pull a model number from either of these. However, there was one of these on a popular online auction website relatively recently, and that had its ID tag damaged. However, the only bit you could see was the model number, which was a 380-229. Now, we used that and we took the 380 part and we went into an MTD kind of manual finder website and put in a 380, and although we couldn't get the exact thing for this tractor, we managed to find a manual for a 360, which is a slightly smaller version of one of these, but mechanically it is pretty much the same. So that's helped us out a lot. We've done a bit of reading of that, and it showed us that we've actually gotten a couple of things wrong so far. I should probably say that we've spent about 3 days on this machine off camera, so that's why we've gotten so much done. And we are now in a position where we're ready to try to start this engine and run it, but I thought we would go through what we've done before then. Now, the first thing that the manual showed us was that how we'd set up our clutch mechanism was completely wrong, because on literally all of our other tractors, a clutch works as push down to stop, as you expect on a car or anything like that, really. However, the manual showed us that this is actually push down to go, which that's actually how our friend's Landmaster is set up. As you can see with the belt on the outside of the idler pulley, that is disengaged at the moment. Then if I push the pedal down, you can see that engages the drive, tensions it. Then I let go of the pedal and it loosens it again. So we kind of disregarded this because we're so used to the clutches on our tractors working in the opposite way. But once we saw it in the manual, we reversed it, so that now works as it should do. We also put a new drive belt on there because we ordered a slightly larger one. However, with the different pulleys that a previous owner had put on this engine, it's very hard to get a belt of the right size. So the one that's on it at the moment is probably looser than we'd like it. However, it's probably the best that it's going to be, and if it doesn't work like this, then we're going to have to look at changing the pulley that's on the engine at the moment, but we won't know that until we test it, really. Another thing that we've done is we've flipped over the front axle, because as we showed you in the last video, it was the wrong way up before, which was causing a lot of scratching to the grille here. With this flipped over, you can see there's way more room for the front axle to pivot without hitting this grille at all. So we're happy with that. Now, the next thing that we looked at was the gearbox, because on our gearbox, when you moved the levers, you really couldn't feel when it was going into gear, and it just felt a bit, well, sloppy on this one and stiff on this gear lever, whereas on our friend's Landmaster, it's quite a nice defined gear shift on there, which is what we were after. So firstly, we oiled both of the oiling points on the gearbox, which made moving the levers a lot smoother. And if I now move these, you can hear forwards, neutral, reverse quite clearly. Then on this one, well, it's in first at the moment and then goes to second. So when it comes to the gearing on this tractor, you only have an option of first or second there, and then the only neutral you've got is here on the forwards, neutral or reverse. But they now go into gear very nicely. This one doesn't scrape the fender like it used to, so that's good as well. So we're very happy with that adjustment, and you can actually tell what gear it's in or where it is as well. Another thing that we adjusted, which we'll need to go around the other side of the tractor for, is the brake, and we had to take all the rear fender and everything off to get to the brake band. But now when you push this down, that is engaged, and we've tested that it really won't move once you've got the brake engaged. But the good thing is it doesn't go all the way down without doing anything like it used to, so we're now happy that that is set up correctly. Something that we spent quite a while on was the deck. And obviously we did a load of work in the last video on the deck lift, but what we didn't really focus on was these side panels that bolt both onto the deck and the chassis. Now what we found was that the 3 holes on here, once you put these bolts on, didn't really line up with the deck, and it resulted in these brackets on each side kind of pointing like this, with the bottoms of the brackets pointing inwards, the tops pointing outwards, which meant that they were scraping on the chassis brackets and getting stuck as you're trying to lift the deck, which really wasn't very nice. So we spent ages filing out the slots on the deck so that this now moves nice and smoothly, really easily. You can feel that the springs are helping you when you lift it up. That is perfect, really. We're very happy with that. And now we can officially say that that deck lift is complete after many hours of working on it. Now in the previous video we did some repairs to this deck engagement lever here by welding that pin in there, and we did talk about replacing the spring. Well, we have done. As you can see, there's a nice shiny silver one on there, and that works very well at locking this into the right position, and I would say adds a bit more tension to the belt, which is always good. Then the other thing that we've done, as some of you may have noticed already, if you remember how this used to look, we have done the big job of changing the angle that the handlebars are mounted at. Effectively, before these were upside down, and we took an angle grinder to the weld at the end of this kind of T-junction here, which actually quite nicely split this part of the handlebars from this part that comes out of the hood. Then after that we rotated them 180 degrees, which left these sitting about here. Then obviously we lifted the handlebars up a bit, welded around there, and after quite a while of fettling with a grinder, we cleaned up not just that weld but the welds that were on this T-junction that didn't look very nice. And now with the help of a bit of galvanized paint just to finish it and make it look nice, especially since we had to go down to bare metal for doing all the welding and grinding there, that is now finished. And when you compare the handlebars on this machine to our friend's Landmaster, they now look pretty much identical, besides from the T-junction, although I don't think that that is too big of a disadvantage to the looks of this tractor. And with those jobs done, we have done a couple of other things. Like we've ordered, I think, a half size smaller drive belt just to try that in future, just to see whether that takes the looseness out of it. And we've also ordered a couple of control knobs, because this is missing one on the deck engagement, and that is not the correct knob for the first and second gear stick. But besides those things, this is now ready, I think, to take it off the bench, see if it will start, drive, and, well, run. It is now a week later, and as you can see, the tractor is still on the workbench. Now, the reason for that is that before we took it off the workbench, we thought that we would test a couple of things just to make sure we weren't wasting our time. which is we pulled it over to test for a spark and to make sure that fuel was getting through, which this has a very good spark, but no fuel was getting through. So we spent the rest of that day of filming taking most of the front end off again and taking quite a bit of the engine apart to actually get the carburetor off, and we fully stripped that down and cleaned it, and we couldn't see any obvious blockage, but when we put it back together, pulled over the engine, it then was getting fuel through. So not fully sure what the issue was there, probably some tiny blockage, but we think that might be sorted now. Now, the advantage of waiting a week is that some of our deliveries have arrived, so we've fitted our 1/2 inch smaller drive belt now, and when you engage the drive pedal, you can see that doesn't quite go to the chassis now, which means that we know that that is fully tensioned rather than the loose belt that we had on there before. And also the control knobs that we ordered have arrived, so we've switched the control knob on the first to second gear change there, and that looks much better than this little thing did, and it actually fits properly, so that's good. Very happy with that. And then we were missing a knob for the deck engagement, which is the same as the forwards and reverse gear knob. Now, Garden Tractor Boy top tip here, when it comes to these knobs that look like this, they are pretty impossible to find. However, we have found that if you go for a walking stick foot, they have a slightly different shape along the length of them. However, if you cut them down to get rid of the kind of flat bit there and leave just the tapered bit, you end up with pretty much the same pattern on the top and the same slightly tapered shape as well. So we cut one of these down to put on the deck engagement lever, and I'm sure we'll cut this one down to replace the original, just so that these two match and look uniform. But we're very happy with this find. We did spend ages trying to find the actual things, but this is the closest that we could get, and we found that walking stick ends aren't just useful for this. We've also used them for making the rubber covers for a Bolens tube frame PTO before, obviously much bigger ones than this, but multiple uses we've found for these little rubber feet. But now we are ready and raring to take this off the table and see whether it will start and run. We have the tractor outside here because it is nice and sunny today, and I'm going to get my cameraman here to do the pull start of it because he's better at them than me, and we'll see whether this fires or not. Grass is very wet despite the sun. That should be alright. First pull! Sounds nice! maybe needed a bit more revs. Now that we are back in the workshop, we can say that we're very happy with how this is running, driving and cutting. It was a great cut that we managed to get on this. However, at the high speed that this drives with the aftermarket pulley that's on it, I'm not fully sure you would want to use this for grass cutting, especially in small areas. It is quite scary when you've got it on high revs in second gear. It does fly around the grass, but as I said, we're very happy with this. Couple of things that we noticed. Your left leg does get quite warm, seeing as the exhaust comes out here, but this bracket does quite a good job of shielding your foot so that you're warm but not burnt. It's quite nice when it's cold. I'm not sure about how it will be in the summer. Did notice there was quite a bit of kind of vibrating noises coming from the rear fender, which is not entirely a surprise, seeing as there's not a lot of metal or weight for the vibrations from the engine to dissipate into. And that seemed to quiet down a bit when you sat on it compared to when it was running without a person on it. But because of those vibrations, it did start to hurt a bit towards the end, seeing as this is just a bare metal seat at the moment. We definitely need to look into getting a padded bit like our friend's Landmaster there. Whether we go for a partially padded or fully padded seat is yet to be seen. But I think with those kind of improvements, this will make a very nice machine to use, and we are very happy with it. So let us know in the comments section down below what you think of our Landmaster Ride-on now that it is a running machine. And that is it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.